Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Feeling Seen podcast, the podcast that talks about the movies that make us feel seen. And my co-host for today is, I would say, one of the great expansive imaginations currently working in cinema. Maybe you saw the fantastical coming-of-age tale, The Lure, that involved being a musical and being about mermaids. Perhaps you saw Fugue, the story of a woman coming back into a life after losing all memory of it in a way that is not necessarily welcome, to reclaim the family and the personhood she left behind, maybe welcomely so. And now the director of The Silent Twins, Agnieszka Smoczyńska. Welcome. Is there anything else we should shout out at the beginning to make sure people have a good understanding of you?
No. I think it's everything is on the spot. What I could say, I also did one documentary. Yeah, and I also work in a theater. I did one musical in a theater about a dog, Holy Hop Dog musical, about a dog who is he's a representation of a child, of human beings. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're keeping your creative expressions fresh and mixed up for yourself there.
Yes.
Let's start with just telling people The Silent Twins. That is your new movie that is coming out. Can you tell us a bit about The Silent Twins? It is based on real people, June and Jennifer Gibbons, real twins from the United Kingdom. Can you tell us a bit about the movie?
Yes, it's about two sisters, June and Jennifer Gibbons, who came from Barbados, two black twins, and they grew up in Wales. When they went to school, they decided to be silent. The story is about their love, their hate, their relationship, very complex, rich. And the story is also about, it has many layers. It's also about artists who wants to communicate with the outside world. It's also about the being excluded from the community. It's also about response to the systemic racism, which was during this time in UK. It's also about sacrifice finally at the end.
Mm-hmm. Is this your first English language film?
Yes, correct.
Now, is there a difference in communicating the specificity of the expression that you want to get across when you are working in is there something that comes easier when you get to work in Polish versus and now we're going to transfer this over into the linguistic and cultural idiosyncrasies of not working from a Polish script? Was that different at all for you?
Yes, it was very difficult for me. And also,
it seems really hard. That seems really hard.
Yes. But because I got the script from Andrea Siegel,
screenwriter of the film.
Yes. I really loved the story and I really wanted to tell this story. Mm-hmm. That's why I decided, to just put away all my fears in terms of the language, in terms of the theme, and in terms of this huge challenge. Mm-hmm. And before this movie, I decided also to make 2 episodes of the series Warrior Nun. It's on Netflix. And then I just realized that, to direct in a different language, it's not so difficult because for me, sometimes it was even there were moments, especially when I was working with actors and when I was working on the set and when I had to focus on the emotions, then I realized that I'm not listening how they pronounce some words about the tone. I was rather focused on the emotions. So on this side, it was surprising for me, but it's not only the language, it's also the clash of culture. Mm-hmm. It's everything. And it's you had to combine, we had 6 producers, we had 3 countries, completely different countries, US, UK, Poland, which is completely, the system and also I think also because of the mentality is different in Poland, in UK and in US. But the story at its core is about 2 beautiful human beings and it's very universal. So it helped us a lot. Yeah.
Well, and something that I was, and I've said this so many times before in this podcast, but it remains to be one of my favorite things about getting to do this is I ask people to bring characters to present to discuss, and when I'm watching the work that contains these characters in them, I'm watching it through the specific lens of the films and projects that co-hosts are coming on and being like, okay, this is the experience through which I am perceiving these characters. And you brought quite a wonderful litany to the table, and I will list off as I received them. So here's some characters you suggested for who we could kind of talk through today. One of my all-time favorites, Pippi Longstocking. Pippi Longstocking,
Yes.
Ponyo, Patricia from I believe that's the Godard film, Breathless.
Yes, Breathless.
That's the Godard
yes,
film.
Yes.
Julie from Three Colors Blue.
Yes.
Fern in Nomadland. Beatrix Kiddo, of course, the bride from Kill Bill. Clarice Starling. Ava, which is Mia Wasikowska's character from Only Lovers Left Alive. And Jennifer in your own film, The Silent Twins.
Yes, and of course, silver and gold from the Lure.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was asked to think about these characters, these female characters, I realized one thing, that in the whole history of filmmaking, there is not, especially 10 years ago, I think maybe from 10 years you have different female characters. But even the movies which I liked very much, for example, La Strada by Fellini, or Kill Bill also, or I don't know, Jackie Brown, for example. These characters, they were female characters, but also on some way they were told in a male way of telling the story, and there rather represented male side of the woman. And I forgot about very important directors too, Bergman and Antonioni, because I love his movies, and I grew up on Bergman. And these two directors, they had very, very deep, complex female characters. But it was, for me, it was really very strange that I realized, oh my God, there is not too many. Of course, if you know the whole history of the cinema, there are some, but in general, I think we have a lot ahead of us, and we have to, create new female characters.
I completely agree. And what I found was it seemed like a consistent through line throughout all of that list. And in your own work seemed like to be this thread of a collection of women apart, generally from either their peers or from society generally, and whether that is as a result of their sort of intrinsic circumstances as people, or very deliberate, sometimes dramatic choices to take themselves apart. Like, obviously Blue and Nomadland are very different tonally from Kill Bill, but you still have Beatrix being a character that sets out on this, essentially all of them are kind of on a quest of their own, galvanized by different either like emotional or physical circumstances.
I've killed a hell of a lot of people to get to this point. But I have only one more. The last one. The one I'm driving to right now. The only one left. And when I arrive at my destination, I am gonna kill Bill.
And even like something joyful like Ponyo or Pippi Longstocking. You have two sort of characters so extraordinary, two young girls so extraordinary that they don't fit in the context around them.
It's Pippi Longstockings, hey ho ho la hee ha ha. It's Pippi Longstockings, there's no one like her. She's got a house, an old and funny house, a monkey and a horse, a suitcase full of golden coins, and you will never ever find another girl so strong and always generous and kind.
And I wanted to talk to you about that theme of kind of like isolated heroines throughout work that you either relate to or that you would go on to make for yourself.
Yes, I totally agree with you. That's why I started with Pippi and with Ponyo and Ariel, because when I was a child, I remember when my mom, started to read me books or some myths, and mythology there was rather male characters. And I remember Pippi Longstocking. She was so different. And I remember that I started to understand that the rules which are in a society, which are in a community, they are the rules which you can break and you can live on your own way. Of course, I was very decent, polite girl when I was small. I remember that for me, it was like a kind of the representation of the courage of the outsiders. I love also the characters, female characters who rebel, with the rules, and also who wants to live on their own way. But now, when I'm thinking about there is also a beautiful book of the journey of the heroine. It's completely opposite to the journey of the hero. It's like the two books in terms of the writing scripts. And the journey of the heroines, it's not that you have to find the gold or you have to find the treasure and your way is like to up. Yeah. Yes, that you go up, up, up. The journey of the heroine is like the circle. Because women have the circulation, because of how we perceive the world. And it's very, very interesting. And also the depression, for example, in the blue, 3 colors of the blue. And the same what is in Nomadland with Fern. How the women cope with the depression. The moment when you feel that you are in a very, very bad shape in terms of your soul and mentality. And after that, it comes that every maybe 7 years, every woman, every girl has this kind of the feeling just to create yourself from the beginning.
My mom says that you're homeless. Is that true?
No, I'm not homeless. I'm just houseless. Not the same thing, right?
No.
Don't worry about me, I'm okay. You remember anything that we worked on when I tutored you?
Yes. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, and all of our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle.
It's really good.
Well, and I was wondering with watching something like Fugue and seeing this woman who she experiences memory loss and has to build a new life for herself in the absence of knowing the life she had, and then it is sort of thrown back into this previous life, and not in a welcome way, where she is a mother and she is a wife. And I was wondering what your, in coming to your understanding of that, more circuitous path of being, the central female character in your own story, and understanding where, with the connection point to, rebellious figures like a Ponyo or a Pippi, how did that form your relationship with that idea of those commitments and those obligations to, the idea of being proper feminine in the world, and then you go on to make a movie about, this woman kind of, rejecting and then being thrown back into the mores of a standard social hierarchy. Do you feel yourself wanting to fucking push back and fight against those things? Or are you no, I'm just kind of making observations? Because if you just want to be out there being a mom and having kids, I'm you go get it, Aga. That sounds great. But I feel like there are thoughts there.
Yes, of course, because I have 2 kids. I have 2 daughters. And
okay.
Yes, and when we started to work on the Fugue, I was my older daughter. She was 1 year old, and I remember that when we started to work with the scriptwriter Gabrysia on Fugue, we thought, okay, she comes back home and she feels guilty, and she wants really to suit the family, and she has the mystery behind. And then because the process of writing lasted around 7 years. And during this time, we grew up in some way of our thinking about the world, about the family, about the motherhood. And that's what struck me very, very hard, that mother's love, it's not unconditional, because everybody feels it's unconditional, because you have to love your child. And it's... I remember the moment when I started to think about a woman, about a mother who has forgot her own child. And for me as a mother who has 2 daughters, it was really very, a very, not beautiful, maybe also painful journey to think, okay, what I would do if I would forget my daughters. When I come back to my home and I forget also my husband, and I don't love people who I used to love very much. And for me, it's always when you tell the story, you try to imagine and you try to, in some way create a new reality. And for me as a filmmaker, it's also like the alternative way of going through your own life. You know what I mean? In terms of the role, me as a mother. So if you ask me about I was thinking about this character, I thought that she has to rebel. That's what she has to face at her home. And also what was crucial to me, that at the end, she has to abandon her family. And for me, it was the sense of telling this story, that the woman has the right to abandon her own family. It's not only a man. When you love somebody, the same is in Silent Twins. When you love somebody so much, you also feel like that you love him or her so much that you also want in some way just to be set free from this relation, even with the kids. So I didn't want, because I love them so much, I didn't want did it in a life, but you can do this in a movie. That's why I like also so much movies and mythology. Yeah.
Well, that I think gets to another thing that I really wanted to ask you about, which is where did your sort of relationship as a creator with the fantastic begin? Obviously, in the Lure, we have this tale of mermaids and it incorporating elements of mythology and Hans Christian Andersen style fairy tales, and then in the Silent Twins, this is a real story about real women. It is interlaced with these very whimsical sort of dissociations from reality and these ventures into sort of dream sequences or animations that bring to life real works of fiction and poetry that we hear voiceovers of them that these women really wrote that are incorporated into the film. And I wanted to know where your relationship with those kind of fantastic elements within sort of crushing realism, like communist Poland in the Lure as well, and then like the dour, structurally racist and medical racism that the twins experienced in this, dappled with these, dances into something more enchanting. And I wanted to hear when that became a part of storytelling for you.
It was in a script. I remember when I read the script for the first time, Andrea's script, she wanted to represent and to present their huge imagination, their Jennifer's and June's huge sense of humor, and also how unique they were. And that's what I loved very, very much. Yeah,
there are published works that these women wrote. They were writers of fiction. They were poets. They had very vibrant, creative imaginations that they expressed in things that people can read.
Yes, exactly. They decided not to say in a verbal way, which people communicate in verbal way. They decided to communicate in written words. They were very desperate to communicate with the outside world, but as artists. And then I thought that I had to find a way how I want to describe and how I want to sell Jennifer's writings. And because Jennifer and June, they, as a kids, they used to play dolls, I decided to use stop motion animation. It shows how complex June and Jennifer were as a human beings, because that's what I said, that inside they were very powerful, with full of sense of humor, limitless imagination. They were also brutal, and outside they were victim. Sometimes victims. So it's like, sometimes you have, I love how Andrea juxtapose the boredom versus, vivid sequence inside the world, and also the victimhood versus brutality, and also the colorful inner world versus this dull, bleached outside world.
We are going to take a quick break, but I've got so much more to get into with Agnieszka Smoczyńska. And then I will have one quick thing before I go about, drumroll please, the new Hellraiser. That's right, the Hell Priest is coming back.
Oh my gosh, hi. I'm Dave Holmes, host of the pop culture trivia podcast, Troubled Waters. On Troubled Waters, we play games like motivational speeches. And it goes a little like this. Riley, give us an improvised motivational speech on why people should listen and subscribe to Troubled Waters.
I look around this ad and I see a lot of potential to listen to comedians such as Jackie Johnson and Josh Gondelman, and they need you to get out there and listen to them attempt to figure out sound rebus clues or determine if something is a Game of Thrones character or a city in Wales.
I have chills. I'm going to give you 15 points. All that and so much more on Troubled Waters. Find it on MaximumFun.org or wherever you choose to listen to podcasts.
Hey there, beautiful people. I'm Travell Anderson.
And I'm Jared Hill. We are the hosts of Fantai, the show where we have complex and complicado conversations about the gray areas in our lives, the things that we really, really love sometimes, but also have some problematic feelings about.
Yes, we get into it all. You want to know our thoughts about Nicki Minaj and all her foolishness? We got you. You want to know our thoughts about gentrification and perhaps some positive aspects of gentrification? We get into that too. Every single Thursday, you can check us out at MaximumFun.org. Listen, you know you want it, honey, so come on and get it. Period.
Welcome back to Feeling Seen. The accomplished Polish filmmaker Agnieszka Smoczyńska has just had her first English language film released into theaters. It is called The Silent Twins. We are talking about that film and about characters that drive her, including an expansive list of women on screen that she has felt seen by, from Pippi Longstocking, a personal favorite of mine, to Fern in Nomadland, to Beatrix Kiddo in Kill Bill. So let's get back to it. Another thing that I found, like, looking at this collection of characters, it is, a lot of them are very solitary figures. And some of them are, like, really seeking out, like, affection and connection. Ponyo, specifically, is clamoring to be with Sasuke throughout the entirety of the movie.
Did you taste blood, Brunhilde?
My name is not Brunhilde, it's Ponyo.
Ponyo?
Ponyo! Ponyo loves Sosuke! I will be a human too!
Human? Ugh. What do you know about humans, Brunhilde? They spoil the sea. They treat your home like they're empty black souls.
Hands! I want hands! I don't want these flippers anymore! I want feet like Sosuke!
But it seems like there is largely this thread of even, like, a character like Clarice Starling, who's amidst, like, the FBI. She is sort of apart from, and we are given visual cues by Jonathan Demme at the very beginning of the movie to show us how apart from her cohort Clarice Starling is. And I thought it was interesting, this collection of relating to these very kind of solitary figures, while having two of your films be very rooted in, like, such an intimate, unique companionship between, like, these sort of, like, twin sons that revolve around each other, with, like, your mermaid sisters in the Lure and then the twins and the Silent Twins. And I wanted to hear from you about, like, that contrast sort of in your own perception of, like, the duty of loneliness and sort of, like, the duty to a partnership.
Yes.
Like, and hear about those two things, that sort of how they resonate with you.
Yeah. It's something that what happened with June and Jennifer. They, in some way, they decided to be together and they protect each other. In some way, because they wanted to be together, in some way they excluded from the community. And it's June and Jennifer, it's completely different case. That's gold and silver, because they were outsiders, they were mermaids. And of course, June and Jennifer were also outsiders, but gold and silver, they came from the outside world. And their relationship was completely different than June and Jennifer. The June and Jennifer relationship, maybe not completely, but it was different. June and Jennifer relationship was so, it was so complex. I could speak about it maybe for hours.
My God.
you agree with me that we also
like psychological tomes can be written about the nature of this relationship between the Gibbons twins.
Yes, because also in some way this is very unique relation, and it's also very universal at the same time. That's why we can so much resonate with them, because when you are so close with somebody, there is also a control in this relation, and you want to control somebody who you love so much, because you want to also protect this person, but you also want to give her a space. But in some way, you also want to. It's not in terms of June and Jennifer relationship. It's also about the question about the identity. Who can defines me? And the wife who defines you is your sister, because it's your sister is like your mirror in some way. And it's and then the June wants to set free from her sister, and Jennifer wanted to be with her so much. And I don't want to spoil the movie, but this would happen with them, and that's how Jennifer decided to set free her sister. It's very beautiful and moving for me, part of the story.
So with you, with this thread of sort of isolation among these characters, and talking about sort of like the pressure of that kind of love and connection with such a devoted other, do you find the solitary nature of those characters you suggested to be something that is identifiable to your experience? Like, yes, I get that. Or is it something that's like aspirational to your experience? Like, I seek to be more solitary? Or like, is it an attraction of fear, or is it like an attraction of relatability to that kind of, not necessarily loneliness, but aloneness? Because the two are not the same exact thing. To be alone is not to be lonely. But so I wanted to hear your relationship with their very solo journeys and just sort of inability to find a peer among them given their circumstances with like those characters you suggested.
The Jennifer, June, and also Gold and Silver, they are sisters. And I think for me, the sisters' love is kind of the mystery. And the mystery which I try to understand, because I don't have sister. I grew up among 7 sisters of my mom.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and my mom, because their mother died very early, and they had to be together, only 7 sisters. And from one who has 2 years old, and the older were 24 years old, and they were mother to each other, they were father to each other. It was very complex also sisterhood. And I think for me as a small girl, I'm just trying to understand this very unique and very special relationship. And maybe that's what I took from the childhood, that I was trying to, I'm trying also to understand my mom in some way, and, and her sisters. And of course, I don't want to focus only on this sisterhood. I hope in the future movies I will not, tell the story about, because this relationship between June and Jennifer is so complex, it's so rich and powerful that I think I don't know if I could, find another so beautiful and touching story like their story. But, nobody knows. You always, when I start to work on the movie or on the story, it has to be always something what resonates with me very deeply. And probably maybe this sisterhood is something what I have to, how to say, examine and study for years.
People pay people a lot of money to help them do that.
Yes.
in small rooms and a lot of talking. And with these characters like Fern and like Clarice and that litany of ones that you said you felt represented by, is it that solitary nature? Is part of it that solitary nature that you feel something that resonates with you? Or is that something that is more of a curiosity that you're drawn to? Or are you like, no, I am generally sort of a satellite in this world, and, connections are something I really have to work at versus something being very like instinctual to me?
Yeah, I think it can be both, but rather it's something what I want to study and understand, and just to because I'm a kind of the person who loves to be with people and who loves, I'm not a solitary kind of the human being. Of course, I love to sit, alone in a home or just to go somewhere. But rather, I think I'm not solitary kind of the human being. But this is something what intrigues me very, very deeply, and what I'm trying to understand, because I think that we as a human beings, we need somebody to identify, to understand and to create yourself, but also because you need relationship, but at the same time you need to be an individual. So it's like maybe I'm also trying to understand this. It's not. I think I still don't understand. I'm trying to understand. Yeah.
Well, and I thought something that was interesting too, considering the characters like Fern and like Julie in Three Colors Blue, is you have these women who they have lives behind them, spouses, tragedy has sort of marred their experience, and they sort of remove themselves aggressively from standard social connections that we would understand of like friends and neighbors, things like that. But I think an interesting thing too about those characters is they're not necessarily young women.
Yes.
And there is a default status with like, it's Frances McDormand in one case and Juliette Binoche in another. There is a sort of social default to, as women get older, they become more invisible. So there's something like especially wrenching to me about thinking about these characters in the context of their solitude, because it feels like women have to do so much to be seen and be noticed as they get older in this world. And the idea of choosing to sort of sublimate yourself into the environment to not be seen, it feels like, oh my God, but what if you change your mind? Can you ever crawl back out of that like silent screaming maw? And so there was kind of an emotional terror that sort of overtook me thinking about these characters in this way with their lonesomeness. Just like, oh my God, but no, we have to help them. But they don't need to want my help.
Yes, it's true. And also when I also very often start to think about Patricia Arquette's character in Boyhood. I don't know if you remember the mother.
Yes.
And also the moment how she feels how much, how everything is passes. And this is maybe because I'm 44 years old and I'm changing. And also the culture is changing. And also how the women are perceived is hopefully changing. And when you start to understand that the women are invisible because that's where the power, it was how they look like, and the charisma, it was because of the sex appeal or because of the beauty and etc. And it shouldn't, I think it should be, I hope it can change in our culture in the future. But that's why I also chose the character of Judy Foster, because I remember when I was, I don't know how old I was, but maybe 17 or maybe 12, I don't remember. But I was really surprised that you can watch the movie about the female character when her power is not how she looks like and not the sex appeal, but her brain.
Starling, we wouldn't have found him without you. Nobody's going to forget that. At least of all me.
Thank you, sir.
And that we even get that amazing shot, like at the beginning of the movie, tiny Jodie Foster in an elevator with all of these men who she's like comes up to their shoulders practically, and the expression of just like how physically diminutive she is extremely intentional. Yes,
exactly. Because always, I think when you go to the cinema, when you watch movie, and also when you try to tell the story, you try to understand yourself and yourself in the world. And you try to, that's what I'm doing all the time. I'm going to the cinema to see myself in a life, and to try to, that's why I like your idea with
Thank you. I'm a big fan of it.
which characters you identify with, because it's like, it's something, okay, I'm going to the cinema just to see myself and understand myself and understand the people who are around me and understand the world. And there are so many ways to, to use your life, and so many ways to go through your life, and it's, that's why the stories are so, amazing, because you can, when you go the path through the journey with Fern or with the characters from Persona Bergman, you go with them and you can go deeper, and you can go through the catharsis. That's what I love in the cinema.
And then tell me about the experience of watching Kill Bill for the first time and seeing Beatrix Kiddo.
Yeah.
How was a rip-roaring tale of revenge for you?
It was the year when I got married, and I remember a friend of mine gave me, you have to watch Kill Bill. And I remember I was shocked. I loved it because she was the fighter.
Oh, yeah.
I love it very much. And also all of the rest of the female characters.
You and I have unfinished business. And not a goddamn fucking thing you've done in the subsequent 4 years, including getting knocked up, is gonna change that. So when do we do this? It all depends. When do you want to die?
But now when I'm older and I think, okay, this is not female character. This is a man in with the what I mean. The way of thinking of the character is completely different, because of course women are very complex. But now there is I'm from Poland. We are very close to the war in Russia and in Ukraine. That's what's happening in Ukraine. It touches us every day. And there is a book written by one of the writers, which is the title is "The War Has Nothing from the Woman," and the fight has nothing from the woman. And this is something what open you the mind, and you start to think, okay, if the woman would run the world, if there would be so many wars in our, and this is something what you can also think in terms of the creating female characters. Because that's Kill Bill. That's also why I mentioned Kill Bill, because Kill Bill I loved. I watched many times, but now when I'm thinking about it, I think, okay, this is old way of talking about woman. As a fighter.
And what do you feel like there is a warrior character in that way that you have seen brought to life with with a heroine, a female character that you feel like really captured the point of view of herself and not so much felt like from the authorship of it's Quentin Tarantino's one of my favorite filmmakers. I love his stuff. And there is a joyful fanboyness about so much of what he does. Yes. And so is there a warrior character that you felt like has really captured that distinction that you now feel when you watch Kill Bill being older than when you were younger? You're like, you know what? I did find that sort of warrior, goddess, soldier, cyborg figure in another place.
Not yet, because I was watching, of course, the Black Widow with Scarlett Johansson. Yes,
I feel like we need your action movie is what I'm trying to get at. Is what I'm saying is, are we getting at the long way of saying, are you going to make us an action movie?
Yes, but also what I saw, okay, she looks sexy, and it's also for me the old way of telling the story about women as warriors. So this is something what I think we should explore in terms of the telling the story in the movies. I think it could be very, very, because my daughter is 17 years old, and the 17s now, the teenagers now, they don't, the way how they, what they dress and what they wear, and also, what they like. It's like unisex. There is no, you don't divide for the girls and the boys. There is persons. And I think this is something what can be very, very interesting in terms of the creating a new heroine, or how you can, it's very, very, for me, it's still like ahead of us. And I'm very happy to explore this.
I love Suspiria from 2018. Yes. Luca Guadagnino's Suspiria. And Emily Yoshida was a film critic at Vulture at the time when that came out. And she wrote about that movie as being unconcerned with the tidy male hero's journey that we're so accustomed to seeing. And that was one of the things she found so refreshing about watching it, was that it wasn't like this linear path to achieving where you knock down walls to where you get to be. It was this like Byzantine traveling through a coven of all women, and like at stake are these like intimate points of connection between them, like who you have between Sarah and Susie, with Mia Goth and Dakota Johnson, and the war for power in a way that just did feel like that normal hero's journey we're used to seeing the building blocks of was just like, oh no, we simply can't care about that. And I just lost myself in that movie.
It's so I totally agree.
I love the idea of you sourcing a future heroine from like your in-tuned 17-year-old daughter and being like, listen, let's be a brain trust on this one and really come together. Well, I wonder what is, as you are 3 features in now, what feels to you like the most sort of exciting forefront of possibility with what you maybe have crafted your way to being able to understand how to do better, or have the clearance as somebody who's more established as an artist, or perhaps in ways the industry is changing? What is sort of most exciting to you about ways that you can develop heroines that I don't know if you felt like was always an option to you since the start of your career, or that you see the potential for now based on like other inspiring examples around you? Where do your heroines have the potential to go that you're most thrilled about?
I don't know yet, because it's always, I don't think I'm not starting to think from this point. I rather start to think on the concrete history and concrete characters. Fugue was also based on a true story. It was inspired by the true story. I also working on a character, on the female character who is a witch, cyber witch, something like this, something in the future. And I don't want to tell too much, because it's you never don't know what's gonna happen and etc. But I'm trying to understand, to what defines woman. And because I just read an interview with one of the writers who said that, female writer, who said that when I was 14 years old, I understood that every book was about men, and the woman was only in the background. And also I think it was, besides of course Bergman and Antonioni, it was also the same in cinema. So it's like, and now when we start to, the women are mothers, or the lovers, or the warriors, and I'm trying to think about what defines us as a it's and maybe in the future it will be not a woman. Maybe it will be like, it's not I don't think it's like a woman. Maybe it's just the person, something in between the sexes.
That makes me, that you saying that and saying the word cyber witch, which is extremely exciting, I'm a big fan of robot cinema. And me and a friend have extensive conversations about it. And she's a real robot cinema scholar. And she talked me through the Cyborg Manifesto. Oh. And there is, I know that there is, I certainly can't quote extensively from it, but I know that there is a line in it where Donna Haraway, the author of it, says she would rather be a cyborg than a goddess.
Yes.
Because to truly ascend to a next tier of evolution would be to throw behind the paradigms of what the goddess demands we be. Yes. And why would you want to be that when you could be a cyborg, something new and something built of your own and something self-repairing?
Yes.
And so I thought that was, that's one of my favorite things I've heard in a long time.
Yes. It's very interesting. I don't know if did you watch the movie Titan?
Yes.
Yes.
Saw that at Beyond Fest here in Los Angeles last year and was just gobsmacked the entire time. And Julia Ducournau is such an incredible filmmaker. even more so with hearing her, how she talks about her work and talks through her work. And it is absolutely a case of like a work feeling even more enriched by hearing how thoroughly she has considered the most fascinating aspects of character and gender and queerness and moving toward a future where those terms are so much more conversationally intertwined because we're less concerned with convention. It was just, she did Q&A after and I was just like, God, I didn't know if I could be more in love with you, Julia de Cornell, but I am now.
Yes. And I think
Did you like Titan?
Of course.
I will have to let you go after this, but I need to know if you like Titan and what you loved about Titan.
I love it. I love it so much because I think she crosses so many borders, and and she tells the story about love and about family, but in a totally different and new way, and I love it.
All right. Well, I am so bummed that I have to let you go because I have so enjoyed this conversation. I feel like we're just heating up. But Agnieszka, it has been so wonderful to talk to you, and I really, really appreciate you coming on and sharing expansive thoughts about your work and the work of others and its influence on you. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Thank you so much, Jordan.
Yes, thank you for your time, and thank you for your work, of which I am a big fan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again, Agnieszka Smoczyńska. The Silent Twins premiered at this year's Cannes Film Festival and is currently showing in select theaters across the United States. And now, that one quick thing before I go. And that, I mean, how quick can it be when it is the new Hellraiser? The queer classic from the incredibly imaginative, borderless mind of Clive Barker, who directed the original as well. The kind of canonical two are 1 and 2, Hellraiser 1 and then Hellraiser 2 Hellbound. Those are the ones that really are the meat of the franchise. 3 through everything else that has happened up to this point, it just kind of gets like increasingly dissociated from those roots to varying degrees of fun. Some have their defenders. Some people love 3. I hear 5 get props. I think a young Henry Cavill is in either 7 or 8. It is Ashley Lawrence, a tremendous and all-time final girl in those first 2, comes up elsewhere in the franchise as well. Pinhead, always good. It's always, I would say, if you're curious about the remainder of the Hellraiser franchise, just watch for the Cenobites. Like, just watch to see the various fucked up Cenobite cool costuming and effects that pop up throughout the franchise, because as we know, sequels have to sort of like keep going, build. So by the time you get to, you know, those last movies, you racked up a fair amount of Cenobites to ogle at, and that's a big part of the fun of Hellraiser. The new movie is coming from director David Bruckner, trusted filmmaker. His film The Ritual is outstanding. You rarely get an ensemble of all men in a horror movie, and it's true. It's like looking for a final boy instead of a final girl. It's actually not the most common thing. It's an excellent cast. They have excellent chemistry. There are some incredible practical and creature effects that come up at a point I'm not going to tell you, so I don't spoil it. But also The Night House from last year, in which Rebecca Hall gave an absolutely Oscar-worthy performance, something extraordinary in that movie. He does good work. He came up in the sort of VHS indie cinema collective of the early 2010s, in that sort of when anthologies were really peaking, and the period of time that birthed Simon Barrett and Ty West and Adam Wingard. David Bruckner came out of that too. Timo Tchayanto, always shouts out to Timo Tchayanto, really kicking ass always over in the Indonesian film scene. But to the Hellraiser of it, Bruckner at the helm on this one, writers Ben Collins and Luke Piotrowski, story by David S. Goyer, and of course based on the book by Clive Barker. So we got some big names in there. I'm nervous because this is such a queer text, and you know, I don't know the identification status of the filmmakers involved, but Clive Barker obviously himself such a forwardly and outspokenly queer man, in his writings clearly always, but I think was really on record with that officially as of the mid-90s. It's something that you want to see go to a very forcefully queer filmmaker, just like, you want to win for the home team. But I trust David Bruckner's artistic sensibility. And the new trailer looks really good. It looks really compelling. I'm really interested in Jamie Clayton as the new, colloquially, Pinhead, the Hell Priest herself. We've got the Chatterer. We've got the Chatterer Cenobite in there. It's always good to see an old friend. We've got people fucking around with the lament configuration like you should never do. Want to see what's in the box? No. The answer is always no. Don't open the goddamn box. Don't open the goddamn box unless hell is what you seek. So the trailer looked beautiful. We've got people strung up on chains, hung in the air by hooks. We've got chains flying through the air at the command of Pinhead. Like those are some buttons you want to see pushed by a Hellraiser film. I don't know. I'm nervous because I'm so excited, and I'm really good at going into movies without like layering them with expectation. I'm real good at going in with an open mind and assessing things based on what they're trying to do and not what I assume they are or what I wish they were. But the legacy of this one's big. It's exciting to see Hayam Abbas in anything, so that's extremely encouraging. It's like, well, Hayam Abbas is there. Well, at the very least, everybody, we're gonna have Hayam Abbas. It's coming October 4th, and it's a Hulu film. I do have to point out, comically, the way the title is illuminated in the trailer and just with the font and everything. It absolutely. Amanda Smith, Disaster Girls podcast co-host, pointed this out to me, that it looks just like the Law and Order font, and to see the Hellraiser title and hear the sound effect of Law and Order in my head is very entertaining. So that's funny. That's just a funny side thing about Hellraiser. But yeah, other than that, I can't believe it. We've come this way. Everything old is new again, and I hope that if this movie introduces a new generation of horror appreciators, or the horror curious, or the kink curious, or the hell curious, I hope that Hellraiser can be their gateway in, as it was a runway for so many of us. This is the first movie memory I ever have, is of watching Frank rise from a pile of blood and viscera in the attic of a house in the first Hellraiser. So here's looking at you, David Bruckner, Hellraiser, Jamie Clayton, thrilled to have you. And that is our show. You can follow us on Twitter at FeelingScenePod, or send us an email at feelingscene@MaximumFun.org. If you want to follow me, I'm JorCrew on Twitter. Our theme music is by Andrew Eben. This show is produced by Marissa Flaxbart. Our senior producers are Kevin Ferguson and Laura Swisher. And this is a production of Maximum Fun.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture.
Artist owned. Audience supported.